We've been discussing trannies, but there are also plenty of retards out there as well. And the retards aren't... just jump your pace a little bit. There are plenty of narcissistic young people who take advantage of this new crusade by the progressive left in order to get attention. And it's it's what that tweet earlier was directed at. Trannies are just queers who wear more makeup, or whatever it was. Faggots, I think, wear more makeup. And these people, the so-called transgenders, are the ones you'll see like Jaden Smith, you know? Those dumb little men in dresses. Well, I mean, this is not really a dress. It's more of a... I don't... These are deeply narcissistic young people, and they're helping to contribute to a culture that normalizes dangerous and unhelpful messages sent to young people. Now, nobody has a problem with artistic intervention, with David Bowie and great androgyny of the 70s and the rest of it. But this is a political mission. It's not an artistic statement. And it's a political mission designed to reinforce a very destructive and unhealthy political ideology masquerading as medical compassion and sympathy. I hate to break it to you, but if you identify as any one of the following genders, you are closer to a potato than a regular college child. These are some of the gender identities that you are encouraged to explore these days by the progressive left. But I'm sorry, I left... You know, I'm very, very beloved by the military, and I didn't want to show any disrespect to the armed forces by including attack helicopter. These are some of the things. Just look at them. Agender version 1, agender version 2, agender version gender void, demi-agender with third gender, no, demi-agender with third gender, femme, butch, travesty, NB, and aliagender. Well, it's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that because young people are encouraged to catch them all. Made up genders. Don't just make you feel special. See? You're smarter than even you realized. More brilliant than even you realized. That was my next fucking slide. Stealing my joke. These are some more genders from the runaway success Pokemon Go. I beg you, teenagers, college students, breakout Vine stars, find another way to be special. This isn't it. We're constantly told that we're taking advantage of people with mental disorders when we use words like retarded, that it is offensive to the mentally challenged community. What could be worse than mainstreaming this trans-trending craze where you're encouraged to indulge every bizarre, lunatic, insane gender identity? What could be more disrespectful to genuine sufferers of this condition? But nobody ever accused the progressive left of consistency. I encourage you to find different ways to be special, please. Do anything except create a new gender. I don't even mind if you become vegan. You know, you could be, or ride bicycles. You could even vote Democrat if you want. Now, imagine during this talk, there probably in the room been 1 to 2 new genders invented. I've talked about... This does affect the rest of us, you know. Does affect, I know that a lot of people say, well, you know, why not just leave them alone? Who cares? Well, it does affect the rest of us. Those more than 99%, the cisgender among us. Because we have thought control being shoved down our throats under the guise of sensitivity. There are pronoun police on campuses as part of these Orwellian-sounding bias departments. Do you have one of those? Bias task force? Designed to scour exam papers for heteropatriarchal misogyny. I mean, it's not very far from the day when you're going to be presented with an extract from Dickens, and it'll say, they were the best of times, they were the worst of 0 times. and have these things retroactive. Usually they want to rewrite history in many cases. They want to tear down statues from people because they might have owned slaves once. They want to rewrite history. Have you seen Bruce Jenner's Wikipedia page? He won the men's 200, no, sorry, it says she won the men's 200 meters. The whole thing is logical garbage, and it's designed to pander to the feelings of the trans lobby who are advocating for a group that ought really to be given space, time, and quietude rather than being forced into the public spotlight. And to pander, of course, to the trans-trenders too, the people who think that this stuff is cool. Women's sport is suffering. And have you heard of these female MMA fighters, who are getting their jaws broken by... They're coming to get me. These female MMA fighters who are having their jaws broken by trans women who insist on being allowed to participate in women's boxing and, of course, have all the upper body strength of the men they are. This stuff is hurting the rest of us. Women seem to think it's acceptable because they'd hate to hurt anyone's feelings by pointing out the whole point of women's boxing is to box other women. Trannies have even made feminism worse by insisting that they be treated as women and branding those that don't accept them as TERFs, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. I'm proud to be a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. I suppose beating up on feminists is the one thing they do get right. Even a mutilated clock is right twice a day. Trannies are being pushed on us as a cultural norm by the media. Caitlin, Laverne Cox, Hari Neff. No comment. See me afterwards for candy. I mean, it seems entirely counterproductive to the spirit of feminism to be celebrating this. What they're basically saying is that men are so much better at everything than women that we're even better at being women than they are. She won Glamour magazine's Woman of the Year. It's ridiculous. But you can't say this because you'll be branded a transphobe. I don't know what's next. Schizophrenia-phobe? Bipolar-phobe? Pedophobe? Of course, if you read Salon, does anyone here read Salon? That was the appropriate response. If you read Salon, they publish headlines like, "I'm a pedophile, but I'm not a monster." Gives you an insight. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. Gives you an insight into the sick psychology of the progressive left and where they may be going next. I've got a theory, actually, that after transgender, it's going to be pedophilia next. This is not without precedent. In the 70s in the UK, the Pedophile Information Exchange, which was a feminist group whose acronym appropriately was PI. They make it so easy. was working with people who are still MPs in Parliament, who are seeking to rehabilitate the reputation of people who fuck children. This is what Salon is doing. They have a particular guy they keep publishing about and copy from, attempting to suggest that although he is attracted to prepubescent children, because he's never acted on it, he's not a monster and is deserving of your sympathy. So you see, it's sort of a mental condition that makes them victims when it suits them, and it is a brave expression of gender identity or of a civil rights frontier when it doesn't. This is sick stuff. It's disgusting. And it is part of the mission of the progressive left to uproot everything we think we know about society and about each other. This is the modern progressive left in action. Caitlyn Jenner is normal now because the media, globalists, and cultural elites told us so. They're teaching children that trannies are sane and normal. They treat university students like kindergartners, so everything being pushed on you about gender and sexuality is being punished on the little kids as well. The left is insisting that we take a political position on a medical disorder. That is sick and illogical and wrong. Some people have read about a case where a trans man was barred from leading a breastfeeding group of new mothers. Can you imagine? Well, so this guy wanted to go and of course, unable to expectorate. He's not capable of producing milk. Nonetheless, wants to lead a breastfeeding group. They're such attention seekers, apart from anything else. Well, the Canadian media said that the women were at fault. for being discriminatory. Young first-time mothers, quite rightly, had no interest in a man with a goatee and breasts, telling them how to breastfeed their newborn babies, but they were called bigots by the Canadian media. It's very simple. Treat the mentally ill. Don't indulge them and make the entire culture and everybody else suffer in the process. There's a certain helplessness we all feel when we encounter the media and the government teaming up to push an idea like aspirational transsexualism. I call it aspirational transsexualism. But there are a few things we can do. Fight back legally. Besides North Carolina's law on bathrooms, many states are ganging up to fight the feds on this issue. Hopefully more do. Hopefully they are successful. Fight the virtue signalers financially. The right is learning how to effectively boycott. We saw this in the Gamergate controversy, where people who were unhappy with feminist retards, claiming that video games contribute to an atmosphere of negative they'd had a go at the religious right. The religious right, rather, had a go at video games in the 90s for saying that Grand Theft Auto could make you go and shoot up a school. Well, it was bollocks then, and it's bollocks now when the left does it too. Video games don't make you sexist. In fact, some of the research shows that they may even help to get it out of your system. Just rape the prostitute in Grand Theft Auto, and you're less likely to do it in real life. Just kidding. But there is some evidence to suggest that competitive sports games like FIFA are good for men because they raise testosterone and they increase the competitive instinct. And they're also good because they help to let off steam. So there's some evidence that people are nicer to each other when they play these kind of video games. No evidence whatsoever they can make you sexist, of course. Anyway, the right is learning to boycott and reject the excesses and lies of the progressive left. Target's stock took quite a tumble after their foolhardy trans bathroom policy. Turns out, amazingly, that parents don't want bearded men in dresses and bad wigs taking a shit next to their 6-year-old daughters. Who could have imagined? My own chief of staff actually stopped shopping at Target. I didn't ask him to. He just sort of said, you know what, I just don't want to go there anymore. And it's not that I'm taking my daughters or not taking my daughters. I just don't want to frequent it anymore. And their stock really took a hammering. It just goes to show, and conservatives have been used to losing on social issues for a really long time, you can win. You can beat them. We beat them on video games, and we can beat them on this too. And not only, video games, are there any victims there? Who knows? It's not nice to have video games gerrymandered, and well, they say, we just want, to everyone to be included. The result is that things get pulled from the shelves in stores. But are there any real great victims there? Well, not like these. Not like young transgender people who are pushed into the wrong treatment pathway when there's no evidence that it's the best thing for them. Not like this. We can help people by pushing back against this. You can support those leading the charge. Many of us get boycotts and why they might work and get sort of consumer activism, and that's all great. And conservatives are starting to win that stuff now. The state of North Carolina has led the charge, but it's feeling heat. The NCAA basketball tournament isn't going to be there. Pulled out of North Carolina. There are lots of others actually. There's these bands that won't play in North Carolina now. They're perfectly happy to play for money in Russia. They will play in Moscow, but they won't play in North Carolina. It's hypocrisy of the highest order, and you should not allow it to bully you into submission. Expose the absurdity of this stuff. Clever ridicule is always the most effective way to combat absurdity. At the University of Michigan, that guy who is just demanding that he's been referred to as His Majesty is doing something important. Humor and comedy does something really important. And you should be angry with comedians like Chris Rock and Seinfeld for their cowardice in refusing to play student audiences anymore because students are too easily triggered by jokes about race or sexuality. Comedians are the people who are supposed to push the boundaries. They are supposed to go there when nobody else can. They're like drag queens in that way. They can push the boundaries of what can be thought and said. Drag queens are wonderful. I love drag queens. They can push the boundaries of what can be thought and said, but they're bottling it. They're chickening out because they realize they created a monster by pandering to the progressive left. And now the students who were formerly their fans are giving them a hard time. But humor and comedy, if your leaders, if your favorite comedians, if your favorite actors, if your favorite politicians, if journalists aren't going to do it for yourselves. And this is the Pepe generation in action. It is. You're very brave to applaud Pepe since the Southern Poverty Law Center has declared it a real cause of racial tension in this country. It's got nothing to do with bad schools or chronic, long-term underfunding or police whose hands are tied or endless democratic administration of black neighborhoods. No, the real cause of racial tension in this country is a green cartoon frog. Thank you to the progressive left and to CNN for telling us this. You're very brave to still be applauding it. But, one thing I've noticed in the conservative movement is that young people are starting to take this stuff on themselves. They're starting to do it for themselves because their cultural leaders won't. You should be proud of yourselves for that. And lastly, it's time for the LGBT community. If there are any of you here, I doubt it. They don't show up to my talks. But if... Oh, hi, sweetheart. Hi, pumpkin. Oh, well, good. You see, we've got some good gays. We've got some good gays. Good gays are very rare. Good gays are very, very rare. By and large, fags are awful. What's that, darling? Oh, you're well... You mean greepy? Yeah, okay, good, all right. Good, okay, fine. I don't really, well, so what the research says is that women are sort of born much more bisexual and sort of life influences can push them one way or the other. Yes. Lucky for you, that means not only are they happy to get down for some hot lesbo action in your favorite movies, but they'll also still fuck you afterwards. But men's sexuality tends to be more fixed, and life influences have less of an impact. But there are rare male bisexuals, so welcome, and thank you for coming. I'll leave you with one thing before we go to questions, and that is you should never feel bad about mocking any of these groups. Never feel bad about it. Progressive left likes to say I'm cruel, vindictive, spiteful, mean, and a monster, and that's why I attack trannies. Well, they're partly right. I am cruel, vindictive, spiteful, mean, and a monster, but that's not why. That's not why I like to make jokes about transgender people. I do it because comedy and humor is one of the most powerful and effective weapons that we have. In the face of an insane, politically homogenous, globalist media and political elite. Comedy, humor, and irreverence are some of the few things that we have left at our disposal, and they're enormously effective, hugely effective. And remember that the target of your satire and comedy and mischief isn't people who are suffering. It is the progressive left. The people you want to trigger aren't people sitting at home with a condition that they desperately want help with. The people that you're looking to trigger are the political lobbies, are the activists, are the social justice warriors, the idiots in safe spaces. There's a safe space here tonight, by the way, on campus. Did you know that? Yeah, don't I look fucking dangerous? Idiots. The people that you're mocking are the people who are trying to enforce groupthink on you, who are limiting the boundaries of expression and also the boundaries of scientific inquiry. I mean, there are studies about transgenderism that aren't getting funded that ought to be. Stuff that we don't know about this disease, that we don't know about this disorder, that we ought to know, that can't be done for political reasons. That's so cruel. It's so mean. That's the real vindictiveness, is not caring about the suffering of people with a condition because you want to enforce a political ideology. That's bonkers. So never feel bad about making jokes about any minority groups, but in particular this one, because this one needs your help. And the people who claim the loudest to be supporting them the most are actually the people doing the most damage. And the principles that will help are the principles that conservatives and libertarians have always known yield the best results. Reason, truth, logic, consistency, and a good sense of humor. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take a few questions. I don't know how many I'm allowed, but I'm happy to take a few questions. I think there'll be something somewhere that you can... Do you want to just do hands? All right, let's just do... Is there a little thing going up somewhere? No, there isn't. Okay, the lady in the red jacket is very enthusiastic.